we'll be creating an API automated test using RestSharp. Okay, so let's quickly look at what RestSharp is. Right, so RestSharp is a lightweight HTTP client library, right? So it's a wrapper around HTTP client. It's not a full-fledged client on its own, okay? So what RestSharp does is that RestSharp adds to HTTP clients, okay, which is a default parameter, okay, but not just a header, right? So it adds a parameter of any kind to request, like query, okay, URL segment, header, cookie, and body. All right, so that's what RestSharp does. It's not a client on its own, okay, but a wrapper around HTTP client. So what does it help us do? It helps us to what? Test API. We use it to what? Test our API. We use it for our automated test, our API automated test, okay? And just like the UI automated testing, when you are testing your website, okay, you create your project and create your framework. That's the same way we do this. Okay, we also create our project, we also create our framework. All right. So to create our projects, our first API project using RestSharp and Specflow, okay, and we'll be building that on .NET on NUnit framework as well. So we'll be using NUnit framework, okay. So let's click on create a new project. So once we've clicked on create a new project, if you have your Specflow project here, you can click on it, or you can as well type here. So it's a Specflow project that we're building for REST API, okay? Specflow, you can see Specflow, you click on it and you click on next, right? So here, you will give your API, if you give a project name, okay? So, and your project name could be, depending on what you want to call it, okay? So you could have, let's say, API, right, automated test. Okay, this is API automated test, right? So we can choose a location where we want to do it. You can either browse from here, okay, you can either browse from here and then create your folder on your on your C drive, okay? Or you can start to use this particular one that you have, the one that came by default, or it's your choice. For this project, I want to create it on, I want this automated test to be on PrimeSoft automated test project, okay? And I will click on next, create. I'll click on create, right? So here the framework we'll be using is .NET 6.0, right? So for the test framework, right? You all know that for our UI, the UI testing that we've done, we've used MS Test, okay? For the sake of this automated test, right, we want to use, for the sake of this API, right, we want to use NUnit, right? So click on it, NUnit. NUnit will add Fluent Assertion Library for us. And what we'll do is we'll create. Okay, so once we click on create, it will start creating our project. Okay, while we wait for that to, for our project to be created. So we'll have our project created. Right, it's still loading. Yeah, so it's done loading. Right, so as you can see, this is API automated tests, right, that were added. You can see the feature step definition that we'll have by default, okay? Feature file step definition came by default. So the next thing we need to do is to add our Nugget package, right? How do we add our Nugget package? Right, click on here. Okay, we go to manage Nugget package for solution. So once that is up, right, so we're going to add, we'll go on browse, okay? We'll go on browse. So we're going to add 2 Nugget packages. And the first Nugget package we're going to add is what? RestSharp. Okay, once you type in RestSharp, it appears. You click on this and click on your project and you install. You install. So wait for that to install. Right. So once that has installed, the next one we want to add is our Specflow. Right. Type in Specflow and this is it. Right. We'll click on it and we'll install our Specflow. install our Specflow. Okay, once that has installed, right, so we can now proceed, right? We'll close this. Okay, now that we've closed it, the next thing we need to do is to start creating our feature file. So we can see a feature folder that has been created for us by default, right, as a result of the framework that we've used, right? So all you need to do is to come here and add your feature file. So note that for this API, we're not having hooks because it's not, API does not navigate to the URL, okay? We're not adding any base text to it at the moment. We're just going straight to feature file and step definition. Okay, so let's create our feature file. We'll right click on the feature file folder, add new, click on new. So once we've clicked on new, we'll come to Specflow, click on feature file for Specflow, okay, and then name our feature file. So for now, we want to, because the first API automated test I will write is a get call. Okay, we want to make a get request. And what would this get request do? This get request will get us a list of book. Okay, so we can now say book list. Okay, so book list, right? So we can just put it that way, book list, right? So now we create. Okay, so now that we've created, right, you want it to bind, right? And how do you make it to bind? You save, right? Once you've saved, you clean your solution. So clean is succeeded, right? We want to build our solution, build solution. So once the build is succeeded, we will now, it will turn to purple. This giving context, when action and then outcome will turn purple. Okay, so build is succeeded. We'll give it a few more seconds. Right, you can see it's binded now. Right, so now that it has binded, we want to start writing our feature. Okay, so now, so for us to start writing our feature, you can decide to add your notes. Okay, you can decide to add your notes here. And how do you add your notes? Right, to add your notes, so to add your notes, right, you can, right, so you can remove this, then your short notes can contain what you want to type in, right? So you can say as a, as, right, a tester, okay, I want to, okay, make an API request. Okay, so I can, so the API can return the list of books. Okay, so we want to make an API request. Okay, so that the API can return the list of books. Okay, so and what is our scenario? Right, so our scenario will be, okay, we want to retrieve the list of books, right? So we can say that our scenario will be, okay, verify, okay, that the API returns lists of books. Okay, so that is our scenario. All right, so now we want to now write our given, right? And to make it very simple, right? So our given should be that given I have endpoint for, let's say we want to, PrimeSoft is building an API, right? Once, okay, given I have an endpoint for PrimeSoft API, okay? So what we're going to say, given I have, okay, an endpoint, okay, for the API, right? So what is your action? When you have an endpoint, what is your action? When I, okay, make or send, when I send
request
a get, because you want to retrieve the list of book. So for retrieving a list of book, what you do is a get request. Okay, so when I send a get request or make a get request, anyhow you want to put it, okay, when I send a get request. Okay, then what is going to happen? Then status code. Then status. Okay, so when you make a get request status code, your status code is okay. Right. So we want to make a get request and status code will be okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to save this and we'll just quickly go on Postman so that you will see what we're trying to do. So this is what we want to do. This is the endpoint we'll be using. Okay, we'll be using this endpoint. So from here, right? Can you see the Postman? So
Yeah.
right. So from here is our base URL. Okay, the highlighted area is our base URL. Right. So where you have the first / bookstore version 1 books is our endpoint. So what we want to do on our Visual Studio, right, using RestSharp is take this endpoint, this base URL and endpoint, okay, the request we want to make is a get call and just send, right? And then we want to validate that 200 returns, okay? That's just what we want to do, as simple as that, okay? So let's return to our Visual Studio. All right, so now we are back to our Visual Studio, right? We have, of course, written our feature file and we want to generate our step definition, okay? And how do we generate our step definition? You all know, right? We'll right click on here. Once we right click, we'll click on define step. So, and we'll click on create. Okay, so once we have done that, you can see our step definition, right, has been created for us. Let me expand this a little bit and bring this down. And then, right. So this is better. Right. So you can see our binding is visible. Right. You can see our class, public class, book list step definition. Right. So let's delete this calculator. Okay. And delete this calculator as well. Right. So you can save. Right. So what do we do next? Now we've written our feature file and generated our step definition. Okay. This is our step definition. What do we do now? So what we'll do next is a very important side. Okay, very, very, very important. And what are they? So as you can see from our step definition, right, we'll have our using, which is using system and using TechTalk.Specflow. So we'll still have other using that will come in, such as the NUnit and NUnit framework and the RestSharp. Okay, so but before we see that, there are important things we need to do, right? And those important things are to declare our 4-member variables, right? We need to declare our 4-member variables, and those 4-member variables are very important and fundamental towards what we are going to decode, or the code that we're going to write to enable us test our API, right? So what are the first one? So the first variable is the options variable, okay? The second variable is the request variable. The third variable is the response variable, and the fourth one is the client variable. Okay, so these variables will be used to store the option for REST clients. Okay, it will be used to the request variable will be used to send request. Okay, the response variable will be used to receive response from server, and the client variable will be used for REST clients. Okay, so let's go ahead to declare these variables. All right, so under your public class book list, okay, that's where you declare we'll click on line 8 and then we'll click on enter. Right, let's start declaring our variable. The first variable I made mention of is the options variable. And how do you declare it? So you declare it by writing REST client, okay, REST client option. Okay, you can see it's coming out REST client options, then your semicolon. Okay, so the second one we want to declare is the REST request, right? So we'll type in REST request. You can see once we're typing it, you can see it's coming out here. REST request, okay, request, right? So the third one is the REST response, okay? So we have REST response, you can see it here, REST response, right? And then the final one, which is the fourth one, right, is REST client, right? REST. You can see the REST client. Yeah, yes, this is it. REST client. Okay, so we'll declare clients as well. Clients. Type in clients. Right. So we've declared our 4-member variable, right? REST client option, REST client options, REST request, REST response, REST clients, then clients. Right. So having done that, right? So now what we're going to do next is to initialize the option variable with the base URL for the API endpoint, okay? And set the maximum timeout for the request to -1, okay? So let's do it. Let's do that. So to do it, you call your option, which is this one that we've declared this. So you can see REST option, right, equal to new REST client option, right? So we can say tab. So inside this bracket, okay, what we'll do is we'll add our semicolon, okay, we'll add our quotation mark and then enter our base URL, which is HTTPS, okay, then the website that the base URL that we'll be using is demo QA, okay, http://demoqa.com. It's just like the rest of those ones that we use. It's a demo API, right, that is built for QAs to practice. Okay, so this is not the end of it. Okay, now we've declared our base URL. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set the maximum timeouts to -1. Okay, and how you do that, you add your curly braces and click on enter. So having clicked on enter, you set your maximum timeouts, right, equal to, right, -1. Okay, put comma, and here at the end of your code, you now put your semicolon. Right. So having done that, right, we've initialized our REST option to pass our base URL. So we'll now come to when I send a GET request. Okay, we want to send a GET request. And now to send a GET request, okay, we need to declare a public async instead of it being public void. Right? I will explain why we'll do that once I'm done. Okay, so here we'll declare public async task. Right. So instead of public void, right? So you will now say public async. Okay. Public async task. Right. Click on it. Right. So once you've clicked on it, public async task. Okay. When I send a GET request. Right. So once you've done that, what you need to do next is to call your client. Okay. You need to initialize your client. Okay. So which is to initialize your client. Okay. What you need to do is one, you now call your client, you now say client equal to initialize your client, which is client, right, equal to new REST option. Okay, so after that, then in the bracket you have options, right? So after that, you can now initialize your request. Okay, you can now say request, right, equal to new REST request. Okay, and inside the bracket, right, you will now enter your endpoint and then declare the method, okay, the type of request you want. Is it a post request? Is it a GET request? Okay, so how do we do that? You put just like what we did here, right? You also do the same thing here. You put your quotation and then enter your base URL, right? Like I showed you before, right? We're making use of this. Okay, we've entered our base URL, right? So what we want to enter now, input now is our endpoint. So I'm going to copy it and come here and enter. Okay, now I've entered our endpoint. Okay, so then outside this quotation mark, you can put comma because now you want to call your method. You want to write your method, and which is method, right? And your method, you want to make a GET request, which is GET. As you can see, you have other ones. You have search, put, post, batch, option, merge, and so on. So what we want to do is a GET, right? So once we have done this GET, right, we can now put, okay, we have our semicolon already. So the next thing we want to do, right, is to initialize our response. Okay, so we can now say response, right? You can see response equal to wait client dots. Okay, this one is saying get async request, but we want to use get client dot execute async request. Okay, so let's do this and then remove this get and put execute dot execute, right? So dot execute, right? Execute async request, right? So now, having done that, what you now need to do next is we want to print our response. Okay, we want to say console. We want to say console. We want to say console. Right dot right line. Okay, response. Let's see, it's giving it to us. Response dot content. Let's see, content. Right. So now we have declared our client option. Okay. So we've declared our request. We initialize our request. We've initialized this is initializing your client option. And then we have initialized our request, add our endpoint, right, and our method, which is a sort of call request we want to make. Okay. Now we've initialized our response, which is equal to await client.execute async request, right? Now we want to console print our words content, right? So having done that, after that, the next thing we want to do is to assert that the status code is okay. Okay, and how do you do that? Right, because we are using n units. Okay, we'll write an n unit assertion. Okay, and how do you do that? You assert, which is what we all know, assert. Okay, dot. Oh, assert dot. Right, assert dot. That's okay. With brackets. Right, response. Right, dot status code. You can see once you're writing the right thing, Specflow will be bringing it up for you. Dot to string. Can you see? Dot to string. Right, put an open and close bracket because that's the method. Right, outside the open and close bracket, equal to okay. So we're stringing it, so put okay in bracket. Right, semicolon at the back of it. Right, so the next one we want to assert is I want to assert that assert dot that's all right response okay is successful, right? Assert that response is successful dot we want to string it dot to string, right? So put our open and close bracket, and outside it put equal to put the string which is true, right? Put our semicolon, right? So this assert is complaining. Let's see show potential fix. So potential fix is saying using n units framework. So we're going to add n unit framework. So that has disappeared. You can see n unit has entered, is now part of our using. Okay, now, so when we save this, okay, then we'll clean our solution and then build our GST cleaning. Yeah, cleaning successful. We'll also build our solution. We're still building. So build is successful. Okay, so when we open this to run our test, okay, so this is that scenario that we had, okay, that will enter, which is verified that the API returned the list of book, okay? So when we run this, so note that for API, it doesn't navigate anywhere, right? So what it just does, it would run. Okay, so let's see why it's failing. So let's debug it and find out why it's failing, right? So let's put our breakpoints. Let's go to step definition. Let's go to our feature file and put our breakpoints here, and then run, then debug it. Okay, so it's failing here. It's saying that invalid URL, the authority/host could not be passed. Okay, so let's stop debugging. Adjust this. Oh, let me uncomment it. So if you notice, this base URL is not correct. So let's go and copy it. Let's go and copy the correct thing. Right, so this is the correct one. Okay, so let's copy the correct one. That's why we're having that issue. So let's paste it correctly here. Yeah, let's remove this. And yes, so everything is fine now. Let's run it again and see what happens. So the reason why it didn't run the first time was I omitted the forward double forward slash, so you couldn't pass it as a base URL. Okay. Okay, so it's not running again. And let's see what the issue is this time. So let's debug it and see what's going on. Okay, so let's step in. Okay, so step in and let's step in again. You can see that is no longer less client null. Let's step in again. So yeah, the method is a get method. Okay, so let's step in again. Let's step in again. Okay, so you can see the response. This is the response.content. You can see it is coming back. Okay, let's step in again. Right, you can see the rest response. The response rest sharp, okay, dot rest response dot content dot gets returned. You can see what it returned. You can see that the status code is okay, and these are the list of books that it returned. So let's find out why it failed. So step in, let's get on that and step in. Okay, status code. You can see it's returning status code. Okay, right. So let's look at that one. Okay, it says expected true but was false. Expected true but was false. Okay, so I know why it was expecting true, but it found it false because I stringed this, but this was meant to be in uppercase. Okay, this okay is meant to be in uppercase. So as you can see, this is what is returning okay. You can see it's returning okay, which is uppercase, but the one that I string here is lowercase. Okay, so assuming I want it to return this, I will say dot to upper, then this will be converted to uppercase. Okay, so let's stop debugging. At least we've been able to find out what the issue is, and let's just change this to uppercase. Okay, because this is what is returning. All right, so once we do that and run it again before we debug. So you see what will happen now. I would expect it to pass. Yeah, here we go. So it passed, right? As you can see, it passed. We'll go to our test log. So you can see what the output is. So you can see when I send a get request. So you remember because I have a code there that I asked the code. I said, okay, print what the request is, what the response is. You can see the response is printed here. So these are all the response, or the list of all the books. Okay, that's my response. You can see it's keep going, right? You can see keep going. So what you are seeing here, right, is what it returned when you view it from Postman. All this, okay, all this. That's what it's returned, right? All this. All right. So that's what it returned for us. You can see what ended it is website http linpub.this.read. Okay, if I go back to my results, you can see that it's the same. Okay, so yeah, so that is it for the get request. Okay, so now if we want to make a post request, okay, is a bit different from the get, because even in Postman, let me go back to Postman. So in Postman, when you want to make a get request, right? Say, for example, right, you want to, this is a post request that we've made before. Okay, when you make a post request, right? So when you want to make a post request, you have your endpoint. Okay, you have your endpoint and you have your base URL, right? You have your endpoint and you have your base URL, right? And for you to make a post request, you need what is called a request body, okay? And then your request will be post, okay? So that same way on RestSharp, if you want to do it, you need to have your base URL, just like we did for our get request, right? You need your base URL, you need your endpoint, and then you need to call your method as post, right? And you also need to pass your request body. Okay, so now let's go to our RestSharp to do that. Okay, so in order to do that, we will have to, write another write another feature. Okay, so this time around, what we want to do is that we want to post, we want to make a post request basically, and so we'll create, go to our feature file, add new request. All right, so to add new requests as well, so we'll write the name of our feature, which is we want to post user, okay, user accounts. Let me put it that way. Okay, we want to create user account. Create, okay, user. Okay, want to create user, basically. Let me call it that way, create user, because we'll be posting the user details. Okay, now we'll have our feature file again. All right, so you can also write your short notes as a tester. Okay, as a tester. Okay, I want to, so as a tester, right? So as a tester, right, I want to make a post call, a post request. Okay, so I can create a new user. Okay, I create a new user. Okay, run on the database /server. Okay, just put it right. So as a tester, I want to make a post request, so I can create a new user, right, in the database or /server. Okay, so our scenario will be create user. Oops. So our scenario will be create user or verify user can, okay, create a user through the API. Okay, we want to verify user can create, we want to verify that user can create a user. Does that make sense? Create user can create a user through API.
No.
No. So we want to verify, okay. Okay, verify I can create a user through the API. Because once you are making that post request, you are creating a user. Okay, verify I can create a user through the API. All right. So now, just like what we have first time, right? You want to have given I have an endpoint. Okay, still the same, right? Given I have an endpoint. Okay, so given I have an endpoint. Okay, given I have an endpoint, right? So because we're making use of different endpoints, assuming it's the same endpoint that we're making use of, I would have write it the same way I wrote this one, right? So I can just make use of the same. I could have wrote it the same way I wrote this one, so that I will make use of the same endpoint, but we are making use of a different endpoint. So given I have an endpoint, okay, so when I make a post request, like use user, okay, you can see giving user have an endpoint, okay, when user make a post request, right? Because we are creating something, right? Then return status code is okay. Then return, okay, return status code is okay, right? So we want to make a post request. Okay, we have an endpoint. We want to make a post request, and then the return status code should be okay, right? So as well, we create our step definition. Find step, and we click on create, right? It creates our step definition. We have our binding already here. So we'll do the same thing that we have done before, okay, which is to create our form member variable. Because we've done it before, I'll just copy it. Okay, just copy that and paste here. Right. Okay, I will do it. So the same way we passed our right, our base test, right, by initializing our option variable here. Okay, we'll do the same thing. We'll just copy this. Okay, go to your second step and put it, paste it here. The only difference is that our base URL is no longer the same, right? So, but if your base URL is the same, you do not need to recreate this. Ideally, your base URL should be the same in an organization, right? But because we're not using the same base URL, so that's why we have to recreate this particular step. Okay, so let's go and get the base URL, and this is the base URL. Okay, this is the base URL. Copy that and we'll replace it with this. We'll replace it with this. Okay, so now that we've replaced it with that, right? So now we will now come to the important side of it, right? So you know when we made a get request, right? The first thing we did was to declare a client, initialize our client variable, right? We initialize our client variable, which is, let me show you what I mean. So here, you can see we say client equal to new REST client option, right? So, but when you are making a post call, you do not write it this way. You add var to it. Okay, we'll just copy this. I'll go here. I'll paste it here. Okay, and what you do is that you add var to it. Okay, so you now say var client equal to new REST client option, right? So now the same thing we did here as well, right? We'll say REST equal to new REST, right? We'll now have pass our endpoint, then call our method. The same thing you do. Let's copy it. I'll show you the difference. The reason why I'm taking this is so that you understand the difference between that one and this one. So we'll paste it here. Right. You will have to add var when you are making a post call. Var request. Okay. So we'll have var request equal to new REST. Okay. So what we need to do now is we need to change the endpoint. Okay. So let's go copy the endpoint. So this is our endpoint. Okay. This is our endpoint, right? So we'll copy our endpoint. Okay, I've pasted our endpoint. All right. So we'll have our method. Okay. So now what we are doing now is a post call. You know, before it was a get, but now it's a post call. So you change this to dot post. Can you see? Post is coming out. You can see post here. You click on it. Can you see the difference? Right. So another thing, let's go back to the one we did before. So another thing we did is we initialized our REST, our response dot await client dot execute async request, right? So for post call, okay, you don't do it, okay? you don't do it just yet, okay, for your post call. Rather, what you will do for your post call is, let me show you. Let's go back. Let's go back to this. Okay, so now, once you have added your endpoint, your method is pushed. Okay, what you will do is request dot add header. You need to add your header. Okay, so I will show you that when we go to get to Postman. So you now say request. So this time around is request, right? Dot add. You can see add body, but want to add header, right? Add header, and the header you add is, okay, we'll put our semicolon, our quotation mark. The header you add is content type, okay, which is content. You can see content type is coming for us. Content type, right? And your content type should be what? Application / JSON. Okay, application / JSON. That is your content type. So let's, after you've declared your content type, right, which is application / JSON, right? The next thing you need to add here is you add your request body here. Okay, to do that, let me show you one easier way to add your request body. Go to Postman. Okay, once you've gone to Postman, make that particular request. Like this one, you can see post. This is the URL. This is the endpoint that we're using, and this is the request body. So when you send this, okay, let's send it. Right, you can see we've sent it, and it's created. It has gone successfully. So what you will do is you will come to this place. You can see this is code, right? Once you click on this code, you can see a code snippet will come out for us, right? So this code snippet apparently contains all what we've been writing apart from where we did our declaration. You can see var option equal to new REST client option, HTTP. You can see the timeout. You can see var client equals to new REST client. You can see var request equals to this method dot post. You can see request dot add request header content application. So now the next thing is to add your what? Your request body. You can see how Postman has written the request body so that you can easily do it, write it using RestSharp. So make sure that what you are choosing is RestSharp. We do have other type, right? We do have other program. We have HTTP clients. We have RestSharp and so many other ones. So ensure that what you're clicking is RestSharp. Okay. So once you've clicked on RestSharp, so what we want to now copy is this, which is the var body. Okay. So we'll copy the var body and we'll copy it up to this point. Okay, we'll copy the var body and right. So having copied the var body, we'll copy this. Right. So let's copy this. Okay. Can you see what I just copied?
Yeah.
Yeah. So having done that to our Visual Studio, click on enter and then paste the body. Right. So once we've pasted the body, you can see how it is now. Okay. So what we need to do next is to click on enter. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to say request dots add parameter. Okay. In brackets. Then we'll put our quotation. Then the parameter you want to add is application / JSON, which is application right / JSON, right? And then outside the brackets, you put comma, and you want to add your body. You can see it's already coming up for us. Enter, and you put comma. You want to also add parameter type dot request body. You can see parameter type has already come up for us. All right. Then dots request body. That's what we want. Okay. So having done that, you now put your semicolon. Okay. So after that, you now call on, just click on enter. Right. Let me expand this again so that right? So having done that, right? So what you need to do next is simple. All you need to do is just say, okay, response. Okay, let me just click on tab and just remove that. So what I did is response equal to client, okay, dots execute response, not dot post response. I want to execute response dot execute dot execute request. So response equal to rest client dot execute request. Okay. After that, you want to check if response is null, right? We want to write a logic that will check if our response is null, right? So let me just leave a comment there just to tell you what we want to do. We want to check if response, if the response is null. Okay, so let's write the logic to check if response is null. So when I say if, okay, space bracket, right, response is null, or response, if response, this is if response is not null, but I want to say if response is null, okay, equal to null. So this is what this code means. If response is null, okay, so what will happen? We'll put our curly braces. If the response is null, what do we want our code to do? Okay, we want to say that if response is null, log an error message or handle the case where response is null. Okay, so what do we want to do? If response is null, right, we want to console, want to print, want to say console, right, dots, right line, console dot right line, right? So what do we want our code to log for us? Put what you want the code to log. We want it to log an error, right? Error. And what would the error state? Okay, we want the error to say response object is null. Response right, object is null. So if we get this error message, right, that means that our response object is what? Null. That's what this code will do, right? If response is null, right, console.writeLine error, response object is null. So let me just put a comment on this. And the comment is log error, right? Error message, okay? Or handle case where, okay, response is null, right? So if response is null, console.writeLine error, like, right? Response object is null, okay? So then once that has happened, what will now happen? We will now want our code to write to assert fail, okay? We'll now say assert, okay, dot fail. Oops. Assert dot what? Fail. So in brackets, and quotation mark, we want to say response object is null. Semicolon, right? So we'll have to hover on this and show potential phase using NUnit so that will go. Right. So what have we done now? So if we're now saying that if response equal to null, console.writeLine error, response object is null, right? So, and assert dot fail, response object is null, right? Okay, so that is how we want to handle that if the response object is null. Now, we want to go to the status code. Okay, we want to go and assert that yes, that's it was created. Okay, so we'll now come to this point and return status code is okay, right? So we'll do what we did before, which is I'll just go here so you see what I'm saying. This, right? You can just copy it, then paste here and then. So now, for get request, let me go back to Postman. So for get request, let me close this. Yes. So you see, for post request, right, what we have is 201 created, right? 201 created. Whereas for get request, what we had is 200. Okay. Okay. So that's why when we go back to our spec flow for this one, which is our get request, we had it as okay. Right. But for this one, but for our post, it has to be what? Created. Created. If you leave it as okay, it will fail because it's not okay, it's 201. The status code is 201. Okay. So, and the response is successful to string. It's true, right? If it's not true, it will fail, right? Okay. So we can now save, okay, build our project. Okay. Building started. Good. So we can now run our tests to see if what happened. Let's just run. And after we'll debug to see how they are connected. Yeah. So it passed. And let's go to test log. Right. So our test log say return status code is okay, which passed. Okay. So now let's run it on debug mode. So you will see everything, how it's been created and how they pass to each other. Okay. So let's put our breakpoints here. Right. And then run on debug. Debug. Okay. So watch out here. Right. So now we want to step in. Right. So you see, so this is our step definition. Public class, public void given. Okay. So we will step in. You see, it's running this one now. Step in again. So it's now calling our rest option. Okay, our option that we initialized. Okay. So that is that first one. Step in on this one. Step in. Okay. Step in again. You can see the method is post. Can you see? Method.post, the value is post. Okay. So, right. And we'll step in again. The header method is post and the request. So we can open this request to see. Okay. So just, okay, let me just continue. Step in. Let me close this. Let me close this request so that we'll just focus on these ones. So the body is null for now. Right. So it got the body. Right. So when we got to this point, it says our body is null. But when we execute this line of code, which is request.add parameter. So this is where the parameter was added. It added the, right? We have the parameter up there. So now it now add the request, now add the parameter, add the header, which is application.json, add the body, the parameter type dot request body. Right. And when you hover around here, you can see this is the body. Okay, that is the name. Right. You can see the name that we added. This is the job, which is leader that we want to create. Okay. So when we now go to the other one, you can see parameter type dot request body. So request body. Okay, and the body is this. Client is RestSharp dot rest client. Okay, request is this. The response is null for now. Okay, so let's execute. So now, if response equal to null, right? But as you can see here, the response is not saying RestSharp dot rest client extension dot execute return. Status code is created. Content type is application.json. Content length is 84. Right? And you can see the response. This is the response. You can see status code is created. Content type is application.json. So it's not null. Okay, so let's execute again. So that's why, because it's not null, what happened is skipped these ones, this line of code. Assuming it's null, it will now come here and assert that it failed. But because it's not null, it skipped all this one and it come to line 48. Okay, so we'll go into it, step in, then we want to verify our status code. Okay, so we'll step into that one, step in again. You can see response.status code, it's created. So the value is created. So that passed. And we want to run this one. right? String dot operator equal to return is true. Response dot status code returned is true, is created, and this is true. Response dot status code is created as well. You can see response dot is successful, the value is true. All right, so we'll now check. This is the boolean bool to string return is true. You can see, and response dot status code is equal to true as well. Right, so, and that's it. So this is a compiler code that runs when you're running on debug mode and your test has passed. So yeah, so it's all run and passed. So this is simply how to run, do your post, do your get call, and do your request, post request, okay, using RestSharp.